The state Senate passed a major budget compromise this week that included 2 Senate Republicans joining Democrats in passing a measure to fund transportation. The bill would allow the one-time investment of $500 million and then a ballot question to increase funding sent to the voters in 2019, depending on what happens in 2018. The move is part of other major budget proposals all being considered this week. We usually go to David on topic 2, which there's no reason not to this week, except we have our guy in the hill in being Ed Seelever. So, Ed, we're going to go to you first. Let us know what the big update is right now and a part of this intrigue where we saw, even though the Republicans have a 1-seat advantage in the Senate, the Democrats held the day on this one.
Yeah, this is one of those great examples, or terrible examples, depending on the way you look at it, where a bill is going through that now has things in it that neither side wants in it, and it's the art of compromise here. If you remember, Senate Bill 1 began as a bill that would take 10% of the state's general fund sales tax revenues, put them each year to transportation for the next 20 years, and use the great majority of that, about $250 million a year, to pay back $3.5 billion in bonds to take care of choke points on I-70, I-25, etc. Democrats came right out and said, we don't want bonding. We don't want bonding. We think we're mortgaging our future. Republicans said, look, we've got to do something. We can't not put money into it, especially as more forecasts came out and said, look, we've got a surplus of funds for next year. Well, Monday comes along, the latest economic revenue forecast comes out, and it turns out we've got $1.3 billion more next year to spend than was budgeted as of Monday. And this did 2 things. One, it made the Democrats realize, in my opinion, that they can't just flat out reject a transportation spending bill. That is not going to work going into the election this year. So what they did, and this is really the product of Senator Rachel Zenzinger of Arvada, came up with this idea that, one, you cut down, instead of 10% of the general fund going into it, you cut it down to $250 million a year. That is enough to repay the bonds each year. And the Republicans said, we're fine with that. That's okay. That's what we want to do. Then Zenzinger threw in the curveball and said, oh, and the election is going to be in 2019. The reason she did that is they want to see if the Denver Chamber's sales tax hike initiative that they are still working on would pass in 2018, because the Democrats would prefer that. They prefer not to bond from the state. They prefer that the taxpayers okay this long running stream of revenue. Republicans did not like that, but 2 Republicans, Owen Hill of Colorado Springs and Don Corm of Montrose, got behind this, and Hill said it quite eloquently. He said, look, I was sent up here to do something about transportation. This creates a bill that the Democrats in the House almost can't not vote for at this point, and so it gets something done. This is either the art of compromise or the art of kicking the can down the road. But right now, it looks like there is a bill that will be able to make it to John Hickenlooper's desk that will do immediate funding and the potential for longer-term funding for transportation.
Patty, we have found that it's been very easy to be cynical around this table, but have we just seen the art of compromise at the Colorado State Legislature?
Yes, and without anybody grabbing anybody else, as far as we can tell. This was very impressive, especially as you watch in Congress as they're fighting over the omnibus bill that Trump apparently just signed. But it's a very elegant compromise, considering how ugly it was going into it, that they worked out something that it does look like will pass the House, that is putting some immediate money into a big concern, and that the postponement of the tax is really smart, because that'll save a lot of Democrats, and we'll see if the Chamber of Commerce is able actually to put that on the ballot and get it passed.
David, what do you think? We are going to see a variety of transportation funding ideas in the ballot this year?
Well, yes. 2019, if you want to raise taxes, this is what the tax consumers always want to do, is they want to have the tax increase votes so they take money out of other people's pocket and put it in theirs. To postpone that vote, to have it in odd-numbered years when turnout is lower, so they've got a better chance of getting their special interests to the ballot box. There's more than enough money in the state budget currently, even before the extra $1.3 billion, for adequate funding of roads. But the Democratic Party is so tied to all the special interests they want to give money to that they're doing the Washington Monument strategy is, oh yeah, we have enough money for all kinds of things in government and bloat and waste, but if you want adequate roads, one of the basic things any government should provide, then you'll have to have increased taxes. The Independence Institute's position is obviously different. We're promoting the Fix Our Damn Roads ballot initiative, which would say with existing money, there's easily enough to get ahead and start fixing our roads. Colorado is a more prosperous state than Utah. Utah has decent roads. Colorado doesn't. It's purely a matter of priority. And maybe this minimal thing is the best that can be gotten through this legislature, but it's a sign of a long-term deficiency in governance in Colorado that are the quality of our roads.
Eric, what do you think about the estimation that the House now kind of has their hands tied to actually vote for this thing, because that they refuse, they're really turning down a artful Democratic compromise from the Senate?
I think Ed's analysis is essentially right, and I think the House would have to tread very carefully to amend it substantially, much less to reject it. Let me come at it real quickly from two angles. One is I think it is big picture indicative that we are now getting to the heart of the session. We have the big issues are being talked about all of a sudden. Transportation, education funding, the long bill is hitting within the next week or so, and then the other one being para. Let me focus the other three, starting with Ed, focused on the transportation piece. Let me quickly reference the para piece. Full disclosure, I have a professional interest consulting with some of those who are pushing more aggressive reform of this quasi-bankrupt system. Because of the state's new largesse, this $1.3 billion that was found because of a strong economy, there's money being set aside, 200 some odd million, for para to prop up para. I think what the assumption is going on, because there's a conflict between the House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans here, and the assumption is that the employer contribution of para, to ramp that up further, it's already 20% plus 20, over 20%, to ramp that up even further, that the House will put that back in the bill, that the Democrats need that quote-unquote shared sacrifice for this bill to pass Democratic muster. And this money is therefore there to fund that piece, at least as long as the economy is healthy. The corollary assumption is that the defined contribution option, the 401k, not exactly, but that style option for younger workers who may not be in this system their whole life, given new employment patterns, that is the minimum that the Republicans need to support this bill, even though the Democrats will do their best to strip it out. So that becomes perhaps the outline of this win-win between the two parties vis-a-vis para.